Hope everyone is having a good Wednesday, and I know I'm between you and lunch, so I'll try to make this a little bit exciting along the way, is hopefully being informative. So I'm looking forward to spending the next 20, 25 minutes with you sharing a little bit of a story of how to take a 50-year-old company, enterprise company, Gap Inc., whose tradition has been in creating apparel in a very emotional space, and beginning to introduce a data-driven approach to how we make decisions and actually drive our business. I've been at the company about 3 years. Started leading our customer data and analytics side of the house. And over the last 3 or 4 months, we've really expanded this to really, I would say, be focused on our entire end-to-end workflow within the enterprise, from how we design product, how we source it, to how we buy it, and eventually how we sell it. So what I'm hoping to do today is share a little bit about a journey that I've been on, both at this company and some places I've been lucky to work at in the past, to try to figure out how do I begin to take this concept of being data-driven. You heard the story from LinkedIn from the last one where they kind of grew up with that. How do you actually take that and put it into a company where it's not necessarily there from the beginning? And so I'd like to kind of start this talk by framing how we see us using analytics and data science, or AI, or whatever buzzword we want to use this week, to really drive our business. And we really see it in kind of two forms and fashions. One being, how do we make better decisions? So it's about measurement, experimentation, analysis. And then on the second side is how do we actually power brand new product experiences, things that we could never have done were it not for the wide raft of data we have. So I'm going to walk you through a story, and there'll be 5 key points of things that if you're beginning this journey or if you've started it, you might want to think about as well as you go through the journey. So I think the first part, particularly when you think about transformation, is really saying how do I begin to get, I would say, the momentum behind this within the organization. And so one of the things that I've actually taken a lot of inspiration from, and it was great to hear this echoed in the last talk, was beginning to talk about this from even the perspective of his Amazon, where it really starts at the top. It really, and this might sound basic, it might sound, well, Chris, of course you have to start at the top. But actually getting the leadership team truly understanding what are the opportunities and spaces one could drive if they choose to go on this path. But unfortunately, if that's all you do, and you just kind of get the execs bought in, I would say you're probably only halfway there. Because you actually have to, as I say, this is also build from the masses. Really work with the teams to begin to build with them, I would say, the capabilities around using analytics or data or AI to drive their business. And so this is one great example of something that I actually look towards often as inspiration, is some of the work that Airbnb has done, and even LinkedIn shared this with their AI Academy just a few minutes ago, around how to actually democratize the, I would say, the skill of analytics across the organization. And it comes with a combination of, I would say, the access and the data tools, but more importantly, the education that needs to happen. And this is something that we've started to do within our team at Gap Inc., because for those who don't know, again, we are a 50-year-old company. We have brands like Gap Brand, Old Navy, Banana Republic, Athleta, and these are people who historically, even our merchants, who haven't actually had to think about using analytics within their day-to-day. So we've begun to build, I would say, training courses, but also, I would say, embedded analytics teams to help these teams understand how to drive the business going forward. I'd say this was our first key lesson as we started in this journey, is while we need to start from the top, we also want to build from the masses, the way I describe it, so we can get, quite frankly, everyone across the enterprise excited about the journey. So now we've got the executive buy-in, we've got teams ready to go. The question we have to solve now is, okay, in this journey, how do we build the platforms? How do we build the infrastructure to bring this to life? My favorite story about where I work today is we have a 30-year-old mainframe system that runs most of our inventory management and planning processes. So with that, how do we actually modernize and leapfrog our way into this world? And it's one of the things that we face pretty regularly as we have started this journey of modernization using AI, is which path do we want to take in terms of our technology and infrastructure and stack? And it's a pretty basic question we all face, which is, do we want to build these technologies ourselves, or do we want to buy them or rent them from others? And historically, as a company, we were on the left-hand side of this, where we would, even though we're not a software company, we would decide we'd want to build everything because we would have ultimate control. And many of you may not know, but we actually started our e-commerce journey about 17 years ago, building our own e-commerce platform, which today serves about $3.3 billion of revenue for the company, and is one of the most performant and, quite frankly, I would say modern apparel platforms, and may not be as great as some of our other partners in this space with regards to Amazon, but it is something that we are really proud of. But as you look towards the future, we know that's not going to allow us to generate, I would say, scale or speed in what we do. And so we've really focused on, I would say, the right-hand side of this over the last few years is expanding our partnerships. And we couldn't do a presentation without the requisite logo slide here of all the folks that we've been working with to help us accelerate our journey. And I want to talk about one, I would say, a key aspect of this that it's helped us, I would say, make tremendous progress over the last couple of years. And that is bringing to life what we're colloquially calling, as everyone does in this world, Customer 360, which the way I describe it is how do we know our customers better than they know themselves? And really stitch together best-in-class capabilities to allow us to do those two things I started at the beginning, which is make better decisions about our customers, but then power product experiences. So I want to do a double click on this and talk about what are the technology stacks we brought to life, particularly in this complex world that we live in, to begin to drive acceleration. I'm going to take, I would say, the first use case around digital experiences. So one of the things, this is what I say Customer 360 in action, that we've really done, I want to walk through this in just a minute to bring to life how this has accelerated our progress, is we started with this concept of we needed to have everyone uses the word CDP, but we needed to have a pretty modern technology stack within our e-commerce platform to allow us to do two things. One, real-time personalization. So an example would be I'm on the website, I'm clicking and looking at things, what should we show you next based on what you've done? And then the second are, I would say, broader cross-channel propensities. So things like what's your lifetime value for the company? What is your traditional preference for a product from us? Example would be if you buy men's product from us, we should probably show you men's product when you come to the website, even if most of your purchase activity, which 85% of ours today, is in stores. So what we've begun to do is build this stack where we have Telium is kind of as the core of our tag management platform, as well as Audience Stream. And on the right-hand side, this is where we've begun to unlock some of our more sophisticated analytics and our data science, where we're using Domino Data Lab to build our pipelines for what we call cross-channel behaviors and propensities. All that feeds into Telium, the Audience Stream platform, and we're at the point now where we have roughly 100 million scores we update every day in the platform. And then from there, we push that down and I would say democratize it to systems for Salesforce, which does our marketing email platforms, Optimizely, which we use for A/B testing, but also experience management, and then other marketing vendors through LiveRamp. And what this has enabled us to do by leveraging these platforms, for instance, I would say Telium, we went from the process of having fairly broken tag management, fairly broken ability to understand customer, very limited timeframes that we could do this, to a place now where, and I'll show you a couple examples of how we're leveraging this in real time, we actually are changing experiences on the fly to our customers and actually generating fairly significant revenue improvements. On the right-hand side, by leveraging tools like Domino, we went from a platform of, I talked about that preference world, where it would take roughly, and it pains me to say this, it would take roughly 8 weeks from when someone had an idea, a data scientist say, oh, we should put this score out there so we can personalize for it. It took us 8 weeks and probably $100,000 to get one score into the platform to do personalization. And by leveraging Domino with some tooling we've done on the back end, we've reduced that now to the order of probably 2 to 3 hours, where we can go from, again, idea to something in production. Now, we don't do that because we put a little more rigor in our science, but we tried to I would say, shore up the infrastructure so that we can actually deliver speed and agility. So this leads me to what I would call the second point in the journey is first you have people bought in, both the top and the whole team in terms of how you can drive AI within the enterprise. Second is you actually have your platforms and technologies. And I would say, and this is my strong encouragement, is you do this, leverage partners along the way. So now we've got the platforms, we've got some people wanting to do things. Where do you go? What do you do first? So this is where, quite frankly, I feel a little bad standing on a stage talking about AI with what I'm going to show, because where we started our journey on delivering more personalized experiences is fairly basic. And part of the reason we did that is if you think about change management, it's actually our biggest challenge. If I'm trying to get someone who's a marketer who traditionally works in the world of 50% off a store today, 40% off tomorrow, and you try to introduce them to a more personalized way of working, they're not quite sure what to do. And they're not quite sure what are the right, I would say, experiences we want you to bring to life. So we started with some pretty basic analysis. And it really, I would say, began to create an underpinning that's now kind of a core part of our strategy, which was, if you want to drive engagement to our customer base, we need to get people from buying just once from us all the way to the right-hand side of this slide, which they buy multiple times, they visit multiple channels, as I mentioned, we have multiple brands, they participate in multiple brands. And if I can move just 1% of people from the left to the right-hand side of this slide, we can generate $400 to $500 million of incremental sales to the company. And everyone's like, oh my God, okay, we want to do something, which is great. And then now the next step is, what are we going to tackle? And so what we did as a team is we said, let's focus on the first step in this journey, just getting someone from their first purchase to the second. And most people don't, people who know database marketing or analytics, this will sound pretty basic, but most folks in our organization didn't realize that half the time that someone buys from us, half the time that someone buys from us their first time, only half the time do they buy a second time. We tripped up today. Meaning, we do all this work to acquire customers, and half of them never come back to us, and people's minds were blown, and they didn't think about this. And me being someone who's been in the space for a while, I was like, well, it's pretty a basic stat. And I've worked in multiple industries, so this isn't dramatic, but it was a shocker to the organization. And the second thing that really shocked people, because we traditionally looked at things in these averages, an average number of transactions a year is 3 times, so that must mean people buy 4 times a year, every 4 months. But when we actually used the data, we showed that no, most people who do it, half of them do it within 30 days. And this, I know it doesn't sound probably amazing to this group, but for our organization, that became the inspiration to say, oh, okay, lifecycle campaigns really matter to us, and we need to begin to bring these to life, both in our digital experiences and also in our email world. So the next step that we did is we began to again, we're a very product-based company, so we began to analyze the product pathways that customers would take. And not surprisingly, most people who buy a product, if I buy this blazer, which I encourage you to do so if you don't have one, from your local Banana Republic, most people when they come back will buy the same product the next time. And so again, something which is very different from how our teams traditionally thought about this, because they thought about this idea, well, you have the jeans, now you're going to buy the sweater. You have this, you're going to change product categories. And the reality is that's not what's happening. So we began to fuse that thinking into the creative development processes and began to test different combinations and our homepages of things that would quite frankly, take this journey of someone who's bought from us once and begin to personalize their product categories to those preferences. I'm going to show you a video in a minute about how this actually is coming to life, but I do want to talk, before I get to that, about the journey we went through to, I would say, build the muscle of this, because this is not something, even though we have that tech stack in place, it's not something that our teams necessarily understand how to create the content for, don't necessarily understand how to create the strategies for, and that's where we took a very measured approach to, I would say, our innovation. And where we started in 2017 with that one-site experience, and this is for Gap.com as an example, in January, again, with this technology I showed with you a little over a year ago, we had 4 segments, and then just a couple of months later, we were able to expand that to 27. And in July of 2018, we had gotten up to almost 90 segments on the website. And a lot of this has to do, we approached it with, again, an iterative test and learn approach. But a lot of this was powered because we had, I would say, the rich access to all of the data that underlies all of it. So what I want to share with you next is, okay, well, that's kind of great. You started to do some product personalization. Well, what does this actually look like on the website? And I'm going to show you a couple-minute video, and I'll talk through it about the things that we've been doing to build more advanced customer journeys along that pathway. Oops, well, the video did not play. There should be an embedded video here. If not, I will dance. Great. So one of the things that we started, and this goes back to the real-time portion of this, is we actually started with one of our product categories when I talked about acquisition product categories that actually had a quite large lifetime value for a company, and that was maternity. And you can pretty much imagine this being, well, it's pretty basic. Someone who buys maternity, they want to continue to buy products as they grow. They would move into toddler, and it becomes quite a nice journey. And what we began to do is begin in a non-creepy way, because we didn't want to take the target approach. We began to ask customers as they began this purchase journey, what are some of the things that you would like to see? What is your due date? And as the customers went through this, we began to, using Certona to do our product recommendations on the page, tailor that with some of this new input, as well as tailoring some of these other personalized journeys for the consumer based on not just the fact they were in a maternity, but where they are in their life cycle. And you might wonder, okay, well, what's the business impact of this? Well, in the first part of our personalization journey, remember I talked about the stages of 4 segments, up to 10, up to 90. We began to see roughly 4 to 5% RPV improvement, for those revenue per visit improvement, every time we launch a new personalized experience. And that translated to pretty significant growth for the company, specifically on digital. On these more curated experiences, for instance, this maternity one, when we did an A/B test, we actually saw 15 to 20% improvement in revenue per visit for those who experienced the journey in an uplift basis. And we did, again, this test versus control. And now I will be cautious to say that's a much more specific customer group. The people who opt into it are more highly likely to buy to begin with, but it gave us enough proof and evidence that we want to continue pushing and driving in this journey. And I think the key punchline of this portion of the storyline, if you will, is, when I started this, it was fairly basic. We started with a really simple idea, and we began to build complexity over time because we needed to take the organization along the way. So I think my next kind of, I would say, key learning, if you will, is as you're going through the journey, keep it simple, particularly at the beginning, and building complexity where needed versus starting with the most advanced AI personalized experience. So now you've got teams on board, we got platforms, you got some proof points. The question is, how do you scale this? And there's a lot of different ways you can scale from a technical perspective, but I want to talk about scaling it from a business side of the house. So we've, as I mentioned, actually formed a team called Data and Analytics for the organization, which quite frankly has a lot of the components you would expect in a data team, like advanced analytics and data science, test and learn. We actually have consumer insights as part of our team because we truly believe that insight plus data makes magic and unicorns. But we've also created a data operations and tools team, which is focused on, I would say, productionalizing the analytics that we've talked about. But the secret sauce has come on the left-hand side of the slide, which is what we call decision support. So what we've done is, particularly for a company who's fairly nascent in their journey, is we've taken analytics experts who are actually more like consultants and embedded them in different business groups. And they sit with them, they go to their business reviews, they live and breathe with the teams day in, day out. And their objective is to work with that team to figure out how they can leverage all these AI and analytics tools to drive their business. Also, what's helpful is they're our conduit back to our other teams to say, I'm hearing this problem space coming up across different groups. What can we do, and what are some foundational techniques we can use to build this and solve this? So this is this embedded expert. They are actually more like entrepreneurs is the way I would describe this. And that's been, I would say, particularly where we've seen success in our organization, that has been the linchpin, is by having someone who's sitting in that group day in, out to breathe it. So my fourth kind of learning along the journey is, if you want to drive scale and value, embed these data entrepreneurs to drive value going forward. So the last part of the story is more aspirational. Remember, I started at the beginning talking about the 2 ways you can use AI or analytics, one being make better decisions, second to be powering product experiences. And this last one I want to talk about kind of where we are headed from an aspirational perspective in that. And I actually start with a video. So I have one more video here to share. And this one has audio as well. A little dance here. Okay.
You do? Okay, go sit on the couch. Is your birthday coming? Okay. So just open that backpack.
Oh, heavy. Just 'cause.
No, just open it. Just look what's in there.
Oh my goodness.
Well, what's in there? Pull the stuff out.
I got a movie. How'd you know I won this, Mom?
Yeah. What else?
I got another movie. How'd you know I won this?
I
How?
didn't. I
How?
just didn't.
Mommy, how? Whoa! Those!
Pajamas.
Ooh.
What kind are those?
There's a monster. I mean, Minnie Mouse.
Minnie Mouse. What else is in there?
Pajama pants. Wow! Let's see.
Do you remember? Show me. What does it say?
I love Disneyland.
What else is in there? Snacks?
What else is in
More snacks? That's it. Where do you think we should take all this stuff?
here? Leave it here.
Where do you want to go with it?
Um,
If you could go anywhere, where would you want to go?
Disneyland.
Why don't we go?
Okay, let's go.
Now. Today.
Okay.
I'm being serious.
We going?
We're leaving today to go to Disneyland.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking.
Are we done?
Yes, we're going. Are you excited? It's for your birthday. Happy birthday!
It's my birthday today.
No, in a week, but we're going. I'm crying too. I'm crying too. You excited? Your daddy first. We're going when Daddy gets home from work. When Daddy gets home from work. Do a happy dance. Yeah! I love you.
I love you too.
Okay, bye.
Wow. So thank you for going on this journey with me. You're probably wondering, why did Chris show a video to make us cry before lunch? There actually is an interesting story behind this that I like to share. For those who don't know, I actually grew up in Florida, the home of Disney World. And the vision that Lily brings to life of an amazing experience at Disney isn't quite what happens when you go there in person. And many of you may have seen that or experienced it yourself. And one of the things that I take some inspiration from is Disney actually has recognized that one of the things they need to do to create a more magical experience or better experience on their site is actually leverage analytics and data and AI to create these better experiences. So that when Lily goes to Disney World, she's not faced with kind of the sea of morass of that everything is in those spaces. And one of the things they've done, I wanted to move forward, is they've begun to invest heavily in technology. There's one called Magic Band, or My Magic Plus has changed the name sometimes, with just some basic things now around allowing you to check out from your hotel room, pay for things, kind of wait in line, do some basic functional things. But they're beginning to test new experiences where when Lily actually shows up on her birthday, Snow White can actually welcome her and say, "Happy birthday, Lily," and actually begin to deliver more personalized, awesome, very brand new experiences that are powered through data, AI, and analytics. And so I just shared this as one example of the types of things that we're, maybe we can't create a Lily experience, but the things that give us inspiration on, as we look forward, what are the brand new things we want to do with the analytics? And we're starting to do a few personalized experiences in stores, leveraging our apps, and beginning to do things where, for instance, if you have a connection with a stylist, when you show up in the store, they're going to be there and welcome you, and then also have within your fitting room some personalized recommendation of things based on your prior history to make a more magical experience. And so I'd say that's the last key point, is thinking about the next step is how do you power new product experiences with data. So these are just a few kind of, I guess, tidbits, if you will, for those who are going along the journey to embrace AI to drive particularly transformational change at a more legacy enterprise company. Thank you for spending the time with me today. And if anyone has questions, I'll be here after and hope you enjoy your lunch.